Basically, the topic they gave me was to talk about my experiences in the field of not only Carnatic music but also the transglobal fusions that I have been doing and my works with different artists. Coming from a traditional family of musicians, I belong to the 4th generation of a family of musicians. I learned music from my grandfather, Shri V. Lakshmi Narayana Iyer. His parents were musicians too. And then my mother, she was a great singer, Subbalakshmi Muthuswami. She used to perform a lot with her eldest sister. And my aunt, Mrs. Gana Saraswati, is another famous musician and a composer. And my 3 uncles are legends in the field of music and also violin. L. Vaidyanathan, Dr. L. Subramaniam and Dr. L. Shankar. Coming from that family, you know how it's going on. Coming from that family, you all know what rigorous practice, rigorous sessions I would have had. I have a sister Nandini with whom we are known as the Violin Sisters. And we have had rigorous training from all the greats from the family. Not only from my grandfather, who was my first guru, my mother, Mrs. Subbalakshmi Muthuswami, and of course all 3 of my uncles, L. Vaidyanathan, Dr. Subramaniam and L. Shankar. And I've also had training in vocal, especially from the Sangeeta Pitamaha of Carnatic music, Semagudi Srinivasa Iyer. And I've also had specialized training under Srimati Ramani Bhaskar, who was an exponent in the rendering of the Muthuswami Dikshita's Kritis in the older style, in the older version. And I also did Western classical music from the Trinity College of Music, London, from which I graduated. And initially I started only as a Carnatic vocalist. And when I started playing the violin, I think I was 2.5 years when my grandfather first started music for me. That was to sing, because basically Carnatic music is to be learnt in the vocal, in the voice. After that, there was a small quarter-size violin that was bought specially for my last uncle, Dr. Shankar. That quarter-size violin, I started my first lessons in the violin when I was around 3 years old. And then we had rigorous training under my grandfather. And I do not have any words to say, because you know the relationship between a grandfather and a grandchild, how it used to be, but it was not so with my grandfather, especially when I learnt music from him. He used to be very strict, very, very strict. He was a disciplinarian and a perfectionist. But after class, the relationship will be very different. He used to take me out and he used to say, "I'm so sorry that grandfather shouted at you when you were playing." When I was not trying to learn the lessons, but as a child, you would want to play around. But I used to get shoutings from my grandfather. He used to say, "Concentrate on the music." At the end of the session, he used to pet me, take me out, get me some chocolates or something like that. And he used to say, "Now you will not realize it. Once you grow up, you will realize." Yes, I do realize it now. And I thank him for what he had been with me during those days. After that, I learned, of course, from my mother. She was again like her father. There was no difference between the father and the daughter. She was equally strict, and she was the headmistress of a private school in Chennai. And during our summer holidays, it used to be even worse. She used to wake us up around 4:30 in the morning, and we were supposed to practice. My sister and myself practice alone in different rooms, keeping the metronometer so that the tala is very strong. And after that, around 8:39, she'll come for a session with us. That will go up to 12:30 till the lunch. After lunch, she sometimes feels sorry for us, so she'll say, "Okay, go play or do whatever you want for 2 hours." Again, she will start around 3 o'clock. She'll give us some snacks or some tea, and we'll start another session from 3, and it will go on up till my father comes from his work. So we used to pray, "Oh Dad, please come fast," but it never used to happen. He used to usually come home around 8:30, sometimes even 9. Till then, the classes used to go on. After that, we used to have some time in the night just to work on the homework. And then the regime continues the next day. The summer holidays used to be like that. And this was even better. With my first uncle, I wanted to share. My first uncle was a genius, L. Vaidyanathan. You was anybody in the music industry, they used to say L. Vaidyanathan was a great musical genius. and music used to just flow out of him. And personally, I mean, Nandini and myself, we have been so blessed and fortunate to have had so many musical sessions with him, not only in Carnatic music but also in world music and fusion. He was an exponent. I mean, you ask him anything, he will just flow out. So my Carnatic music lessons, he used to say, the best time to practice. Do you know the time? What he said?
4 in the morning. 4 in the morning.
Early morning, 3 o'clock was the timing he suggested. 3 to 6:30, he used to call it as the Brahma Muhurtam, you know, in Tamil. They say that was the apt time for one to practice music, 3:30 to 6:30. So he'll give me a call in the morning around 3 o'clock, and he said, get ready for your practice. So 3:30, from 3:30 to 6:30, Nandini and myself used to practice. And my uncle used to come home, visit us around 5 o'clock. My dad used to go and pick him up because he was staying close by. 5 o'clock he'll come home, and again the regime used to continue, you know, 5 to 9 or 10. And then he used to give me a lot of homework for me to work for the next day. And then that was how the practice we had with all our gurus. And with my my second uncle, Dr. Subramaniam, also the same thing followed. But with Dr. L. Subramaniam, when I went with him on a couple of his tours to Germany and London, even while going on a lift, he used to teach me, you know, short, small things, which was very important, which I felt, you know, by watching a guru, or, I mean, the gurus, they just teach us music. But these small things, like even how to keep the violin, how to connect your, your wires, how to keep the wire on stage. I mean, it should not be clumsy, it should be neat. All the small details that I learned from Dr. Subramaniam. And he also, I mean, made me meet a lot of musicians for my PhD, like Sir Yahudi Minovan and Stephen Grappelli, the wonderful jazz player. Yeah, and because I was working on a comparative study of violin techniques in Western and Carnatic music for my PhD, and L. Subramaniam, he took me to Germany and London. He made me meet all these great musicians so that I could get some valuable information for my thesis. And also Arve Tellefsen from Norway, so which I thank him also for that. With L. Shankar, again, he's a perfectionist. My first tour to the US was for my grandfather's festival of music that L. Shankar first started. It was known as the Lakshmi Narayana International Music Festival, in which Nandini and myself were a part of it. So we went there, and then my uncle used to be a hard taskmaster, you know. He used to put on the metronometer and asked us to play the varnams. Varnams are the musical form which can be rendered in different musical speeds. So in our tradition of music, we used to render the varnams in 4 to 5 speeds. Sometimes it even goes to different nade combinations and all. So the thalam should be perfect for that. So he used to on the metronometer and ask us, he will never be satisfied. He'll say, no, you can play it twice. Even if it is correct, he'll say, it's okay, you play it twice more. So that was the hard, that was the practice we had with Shankar. In fact, last year, we will never forget, we had the great opportunity to perform with my uncle Shankar and also Mike Albert of Megadeth fame when they came here on a concert tour. And Nandini and myself performed with L. Shankar and Mike. And my uncle was staying with us for some months, and he was giving us a lot of his compositions, because as you are all aware, Shankar was the founder of Shakti, the very famous band with John McLaughlin and Zahir and Riku. And he was teaching us all his compositions on the double violin, which he wanted us to play also. And he taught us compositions from Frank Zappa's album, The Touch Me There, which he performed, then Shakti's compositions, and with Jan Gabarek, the album which he had performed. So he was teaching us all these compositions. I will never forget, one night, you know, he called us for practice around 7:30. He said, come, let us go for the rehearsal. Nandini and myself very obediently took the violin and went inside for our master sessions with him. The class, we were learning. At one point, you know, our eyes were becoming a bit red. He just looked at the time, looked at our eyes and said, oh, I'm so sorry, it's 1:30 midnight. Okay, you can go to sleep now. So 1:30 midnight, our classes stopped and I had to go. And after that, You thought Shankar would have gone to sleep? No. He was practicing his music and he came to bed only till 5, I think. Till 5 he was on his practice. 5 he came up and he slept. And my mother kept telling, oh, Shankar never sleeps. Just 2 days back, I happened to speak to him over phone. He lives in LA, so it was midnight, past midnight for him. And I was just trying to just talk to him something, and I heard some violin strings. So I asked him, what are you doing at this hour? He's not practicing. You know, I keep asking him, for a person of your stature, do you think you need to practice? He says, yes. Practice is a must. And he normally quotes one thing. He says, one should be an athlete. A musician should be like an athlete. He should always be fine and fit to perform. So the practice, the more you practice, the more better, he says. So he wouldn't like me. Even one day if I don't practice, he will know that with my voice. He'll normally ask me, so what did you do today? So he knows if I don't practice. I normally practice daily, but sometimes, you know, like today I didn't practice because I had to come to S.A.M. It takes around 2.5 hours for me to come here. And morning I just woke up, had something to do with my laptop, preparing for the lecture, and then I walked. So I know I missed my practice today. But tomorrow I'm sure he will ask me and he will tell me. At the end of my conversation, he will definitely make the statement saying that you should be an athlete and you should never leave your practice. At least for 10 minutes you should practice. That is what I get from my gurus. But that has been the Carnatic music, that which I learned, the classical music tradition, and also the Western classical music tradition, that has paved the way for me to do a lot of collaborative works with different musicians. In fact, Nandini and myself have played a lot of jugalbandis with Pandit Ronu Majumdar, who was a Grammy awardee, and then Tarun Bhattacharya and Fazal Qureshi, Zakir's brother. And then jugalbandis, I mean, we've done with a lot of musicians, Shahid Parvez. Not only that, we have also done fusion music. Before that, I'll just play some videos for you, that which I bought specially. One is with S.A.M with Jean-Luc Ponty and Billy Coban, which is a very famous Conversations. That's S.A.M with Billy Coban and Jean-Luc Ponty on the violin. Shankar's album, I'm going to play one clipping called Raga Averi, which is from one of his albums called Galaxy. He was the first Carnatic musician to have been nominated for a Grammy and to have been awarded one.
ஒரு நிமிஷம் கட் பண்ணுங்க.